I want to talk to you about my friend Charlie Crawford. He's a 10-time NFR qualifier.
Charlie Crawford, time to just shake it out and win. Got it on him fast, set
there
up.
We are.
Here's a day
Nice
money
run.
lead. You betcha 3-8.
That's an absolute perfect run. Timing was perfect from the time the first swing is up. He's got the control. Charlie made it happen by being timed up with his horse with the steer, and being able to not just rope, but to pick that steer's head up without changing the momentum for the heeler at all.
We know his beautiful wife, Jackie, all three of their beautiful children, the founder of the Liberty and Loyalty Foundation, which this year will exceed $1 million raised for military and first responders. I've said it 1,000 times. Charlie, it's time to rope, nod and ride, whip and spur. I want to welcome you to the Charlie Crawford Podcast. Let's ride.
Ropers, are you ready to step up your game? My online course, The Basics of Roping, is built for beginners, but packed with tools to help ropers of all levels sharpen their skills. With over 2 hours of instruction, frame-by-frame swing breakdowns, when to turn your hand over to keep your loop open, when and where to let go of your rope so you can get the horns in the middle of that loop, over 15 dummy drills to simulate real-life runs, you'll have everything you need to improve. Go to charlycrawford.training and follow the link under the course tab to get started today.
What's up, Danny boy?
Hey, buddy. Good to see you. I'm glad we could get back together.
I'm glad we can get back together. It's just wild that we like brothers, I would say, more than best friends. I would say both from, up there in the Northwest, up there in Oregon, and Nashville is the place where we're able to get together and get a podcast done.
Well, I've had to chase you all over the country, and trying to raise you right's been tough.
Yeah, it's not been an easy road.
No. A lot of phone calls and in the middle of the night going, dude, what are you doing?
Yeah, it's been wild.
Yeah.
So just so everyone knows, Dan Johnston lives up there in Milano, correct? Or Moala?
Correct.
Milano,
yeah.
Up there in Milano, Oregon. He's got his own business, ropes. We've roped forever. Probably my longest friend that I've had. I think we met when I was probably 11 or 12,
Yep.
I feel like.
Yep. You were kicking my butt in the jackpots, and I said, who is this kid? I got to learn from him.
And then I think you've been to almost every NFR. I think it was every one of them, but I couldn't remember if we missed one or not. But
I was thinking I missed just one.
Yeah. So it's been we've known each other a long time. So it's fun to get to meet back up here in Nashville, Tennessee. I had a clinic in Kentucky, and you're going to fly down early and come help me with that clinic. But man, there's been storms and tornadoes, and It's been wild down here weather-wise. So my clinic got canceled there in Kentucky with J.D. Hill up there, and I don't even know if he couldn't even get out yesterday. There's people, they couldn't even get to Greenville because it's been flooding everywhere and raining. So yeah, the weather's been wild. But so we had tickets to go to Kid Rock's Comedy Jam. So worked out pretty good when we get here. A clinic gets canceled, and I think we get to hang out here for a weekend.
We're here anyway. We went to that Kill Tony last night. That was fun.
That was pretty cool.
Different format.
Mm-hmm.
Got to see kind of a tornado.
Yeah, a lot of tornado warnings for sure. But it was, Kill Tony was cool. I like comedy. I love being able to laugh. And so to be able to get away and go get around some comedians and him and Matt Rife was there. So it was pretty cool.
Problem was you and I can't hear, so we kept saying, what do you say? What do you say?
I know it. That's a problem. I'm going to have to get hearing aids. But I went and got checked last year, and they told me that the hearing aids that I needed cost $6,800. And I was like, well, I hear that, so I think I'm fine.
No doubt.
Yeah, we've taken trips together before. We went to Green Bay. I remember we went to Green Bay, I think after my third finals.
That's right.
Or something like that. At third NFR in 2007, we went up there and seen Brett Favre's last regular season game as a Green Bay Packer. Oh, yeah. Yeah, he was a man.
I remember walking around there, and it was just freezing cold, and people were walking around with no shirts, or they had like buffalo jackets on, and man, that was crazy. That was a fun trip. And you missed your damn flight. Had to drive.
Yeah, I did.
As
I did.
usual.
I was celebrating early with all the fact. Yeah, and missed my flight and had to rent a car.
Yeah,
in the snow.
Charlie Crawford.
Yeah, that kind of explains a lot of my earlier career.
So here I am.
That puts it in a nutshell.
I'm like, dude, I'll just meet you there. And I'm like, where are you? I had to rent a car and drive across country. serious.
I did.
You had one job.
I did. Exactly right. Exactly right. Well, there was a bar right there, and they kept delaying my flight, and then they said that they were going to load again. Well, this is like the 7th or 8th time they've said that, so I quit believing them. And sure enough, I was the last cheesehead in there.
Yeah, you just ignored them. That can't be me. There's got to be another Charlie Crawford they're calling.
Yeah.
Anyhow, that was good.
Yeah, it's been fun here in Nashville. I tell you what, the people here are amazingly nice.
Yeah, fun,
such
polite.
Nice people,
Yep.
so polite. The band last night at the Kid Rock, his big ass honky tonk bar, man, those guys jammed. That was so much fun.
Did you catch who that was?
Yeah, I had it down on my phone. I think Men's Brothers.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, they jammed, man. They were good. I think Men's Brothers, MANTZ, and yeah, they jammed, man. I ain't been up that late in a long time.
Well, and the funny part was here I was telling my son today, I said, for me to be the responsible one of the group again, so like 2, 3 in the morning, I'm like, Charlie, let's go, man. I'm tired. Yeah, one more song. How many times in my life have I heard that? Just one more song.
Just one more.
Just one more. So finally, I just had to push him out the door. And then, hey, let's go eat. All right.
Yeah, I love good music, man, and that was fun. That was a lot of fun. I was glad you didn't rent a car in one perspective because it's so hard to park anywhere. But in another way, I was kind of bummed you didn't get a car rented because, man, I ain't got to freaking get one in a rent a car for a while and just like tear some stuff up.
That was a hard no. For all of you who don't know, Charlie loves the rental cars. When he'd go to Vegas, man, he'd rent those, and there was a speed bump behind where? Thomas Mack? Yeah. Tell them about your speed bump stories.
Yeah, those are more of launching pads than I would say speed bumps. Like, I don't know how wide they were. What they had to be, 3 foot wide, maybe something like that.
We were going too fast to check that out.
I don't know if they went up maybe a foot, but I'm telling you, you could catch some bitchin' air off those things. And when we would drive through there was when everyone was off campus. And so I could just roll. And then that's back when we had the middle e-brake.
Right.
And golly, you could hit those and catch air. And then just slide that thing to a stop.
Yep, Dukes of Hazzard.
It was really good when it rained. Because, man, remember them light poles out in the parking lot that pole bend them?
Oh, yeah. No, I do. Saw them up close and personal.
Yeah. I remember Buck Campbell, that was the time there right after. I blew, I think, 2 or 3 of them up my first year. I made the NFR because, my first NFR was kind of a blur because I didn't think I'd ever make it again. I thought that was kind of a fluke deal. And to make it twice is like you had to be one of the guys to make it twice. And so I was like, well, if I never make it again, we're going to have fun. And yeah, I blew one up within I think by round 5, it just blew up and quit running. And then I know I blew another one up there before I even got it there. But I think there was another one because I think I messed up the shocks. I think well, for obvious reasons. And
yeah, the alignment and everything else.
Well, then I wrecked one, and that's when Buck Campbell kept saying, well, you can't put a price on fun, Chuck. Can't put a price on fun. Well, when you the e-brake doesn't work and you miss it and you slide through the curb and go through the cyclone fence and bust the rim, pop the tire and bend the axle and scratch the paint, $3,500 later, you can put a price on fun.
Just for one night.
Exactly. Yeah, that was one of those. I remember that commercial. What was it? The MasterCard commercial when the father takes his son to the game and, tickets are $27 a piece and, an autograph signed baseball was $17 and, the price to get to the game was $100 and finally, but the experience you get to have with your kid is priceless.
Hey, something we talk about today, obviously.
Well, but it wasn't priceless.
I told my wife I was getting in the car. She goes, don't let Charlie go.
Yeah, especially with all this rain.
Yeah.
Holy smokes, he'd catch some sweet G-forces in this wet concrete.
Right on.
Yeah, that was fun though. That last bump where the concrete was kind of wore out a little bit before he got to the launching pad. That was the best one because that's the one you catch the most air on. But unfortunately, I think it was within 25 feet. No, I think about 25, 30 yards, I think.
Of the fence.
I'm better with a football field than I am feet. But yeah, I think yards. Yeah, then there's a curb and a cyclone fence. Mm-hmm. And that was one time where I went right through it.
Yeah, I remember, the first little bit in Vegas, man, we didn't do a good job of keeping you on task, did we?
Yeah, I didn't think I'd ever go back. And so, yeah, it was one of them. Like, that place in that third round.
wasn't it 5th?
No, I played the first one. I placed in the 3rd round.
Yeah.
And that was the first time I got
first
money.
Right.
Yeah.
And we spent every bit of that.
Almost died. Yeah. I remember you said, gosh dang, I hope he doesn't place every round.
Oh, man, that was
can't
tough
survive.
on me. Well, I went there all 10 days the first time, and finally my wife showed up, and she's like, you guys need to take this a little more serious. That she's the life coach of both of us.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Lessons learned for sure. Yeah, I remember, I still remember that one time I drove your truck when, I'm going to blame it on you because you were late to pick us up when I flew in. Well, I think I flew in from Prescott and we flew in for St. Paul and you're not there. And I kept telling him, make sure you're there early, make sure they're early. Being Big Al.
Don't even start with me. Hold on. You gave me a time to be there. I was there, well, on time. Not early, I have to admit. But then you're like, hey, let me drive. I'm like, no, I'll drive. You go, no. And you just pretty much threw me out. So it was you, Alan Bach, and Chad. And I don't know who was roping with Chad at that time. And Charlie goes, hey, let me just drive there. And I've got the name on the company name on the side of the truck, and he's going down freaking 205, cutting people off. They're honking at me. I'm hanging out the window. Sorry, I'm sorry. And he just
trying to get you some business.
Oh yeah, just embarrassing the shit out of me. So then we call our good buddy. Well, I probably shouldn't. I don't want to get him in trouble. But our good buddy Bill over there, he's working the ground, and he takes 3 or 4 more laps around.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we're coming in from Prescott, and so to get there in time for slack, like we had to move. Yeah. And my horses were already there, saddled, warmed up, ready to go, and yeah, we hooked it and booked it. And I remember as soon as we got pulled over right there, jumped the fence, got on the horse, and won the rodeo.
Yeah,
it was kind of cool. It was one of them kind of highlights of one of the wins you'll never forget.
I'm not sure at that time, but I think you and Al had the arena record, or maybe still do.
Me and Joseph had the arena record when him and I won it that one year in 2017. But yeah, me and Big Al won it for the first time there in 2006 that year. And that was a memorable win. It was pretty cool to go back to a place that I've cut my teeth on.
Right.
You know, that was something that, you know, I looked forward to every year was to watch all the big guys rope there as a kid, and then to be able to win that with one of the guys I grew up watching at that rodeo. It was a special win.
That's pretty cool. At that time frame when you were coming to the house, you brought, man, like Chad, the up-and-comers, Paul Eves. You had Clay Smith there, his brother. Man, I don't know how many guys you brought through there at the house when they were just coming through. Caleb Driggers, all kinds of those guys. You're like, watch these guys. They're coming up. And sure enough, here they are. Paul Eves was out there roping the dummy all day. That's what the kind of work those guys put in, you and him. And then Chad would come over. You guys would rope the dummy. I'd get to sit there and watch you guys talk about strategy. That was pretty neat. Yeah,
the amount of times we would just, you know, flatten out the dirt and just draw lines in the sand and, you know, trying to figure out runs and, you know, kind of like in old football games when they had the bottle caps in the huddle, you know, trying to figure out a route to run to try to get the feet to handle better.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember Corey Kuntz when he was over there. I remember he played ball with the kids and stuff like that.
Played basketball. Yeah. I think
those days were fun.
I think we smoked him, but that's okay. Corey, I'll give you a chance here in July when you come up to that school.
Yeah, that's going to be fun. We got that clinic in July 12th and 13th in St. Paul.
Yep. At the outdoor arena there at St. Paul, they have a little outdoor, and there's, plug-ins and stalls there and whatnot. But that'll be exciting. You haven't had a clinic up in our area for quite some time.
Yeah, because we had a bunch of them there for a while, and then rodeo kind of took over.
Yeah. During your heyday in the early 2000s, man, we must have had 2 or 3 every year, and then put on those rope-ins over there in Prineville with Steve and Liz.
Yeah,
the Team Equine folks.
Yeah, that was fun. You got to recently go to Arizona this winter for the first time, correct?
Yep. Been talking about it forever.
What was that experience like for you?
Man, so it's just different. Like in our area, you know, there's not a lot of high number folks necessarily. And going there, I just got my number lowered again. And I thought, you know, maybe it was just age catching up with me. But when you go someplace like that and those guys rope all the time, every day, I can understand why they're higher numbers, or actually they're just snappy. They're better at it, you know, just to get to do that all the time outside. So it's an eye opener. It took me the first week to kind of get my feet wet, and finally broke the ice, won a little bit of money, and then I was fortunate enough to meet you there. You come over and helped us work on the horses, scoring better, handling cattle better, just in a couple hours. So not to inflate your ego much, but after that, I went and placed in a rope, and so I'm like, yeah, okay, I'll give Charlie some credit because my horses were actually rating off a little bit better and doing good. So, but the experience was awesome. We're going to go back. Me and my buddy Grady drove down and stayed at Bill Smith's place, and we got that reserve again for next year. So do her again.
What do you think the difference was there? What do you think was the competition different? What do you think was so much different? You feel like, when you go down there, because, for one, you're outside again.
Yeah.
You guys have been, that's what's hard about coming from where you come from. You're inside probably dang near September till
right. And I'll tell
you, certain years, maybe almost May.
Yeah. We have a great club. It's awesome. We have a roping club. There's about 20 of us that rent this arena and rent some cattle, but they're, slow roped out cows by this time of the year, and you're roping indoors. So you go there, and I just jumped right into a jackpot the day after. I let my horses rest for a day, and then jumped into jackpot. And while I'm outside roping fresh cattle, and they don't handle like they do on the roped out indoor cattle. So I was kind of struggling with that a little bit. And they're just fresh, small horn cattle that we don't see very often in our area. So that was tough, getting used to that. But after a couple of days, it was just like any other arena, but it just took me a little bit of time. And then I also found out too, and so I learned actually quite a bit. You go there, and they have like Grady's daughter Peyton said, the old man ropings, and I'm like, I don't know, hell, I just jumped. I went to the truck roping. I'm roping against Coulter Todd's kid.
What's that? No, we're good. Thank you. Sorry, rock on. We can probably edit that if we need to. We're hanging out in the room. We probably don't need to edit it.
So anyway, so I'd go to any jackpot, right? I was just hungry to go rope, and I'm roping against these young kids, and they're just smoking us. They're just better. So I'd go to these old man ropings, 40 plus ropings, and kind of found my niche roping in the 9, 10, 11s. And so I just learned that I won't go to the all age ropings anymore. Just stay in my lane, basically.
There's a lot to those, the 40 pluses, 50 pluses. It does level the playing field, I feel like, to where you're roping against those kids. And, some of them kids, they can stay hidden out. That's one thing that can happen. And another thing is then they also can all of a sudden learn how to heal.
Yeah.
Like in a week, because they rope so much, they're just driven. They're just, once it feels like the roping bug gets them, then they're just infatuated with it. They rope everything. They rope the cat, the dog, their dad's left leg on the way to work, the beer bottle still sitting on the fence. I mean, everything. And then once it clicks, I mean, they can go from a 4 to a 6 pretty quick.
Yeah. And they do it every day, all day. Right. And I remember I called you one time, I was frustrated. I'm like, Charlie, man, what drills can I work on? And you older guys, all you older ropers, you'll appreciate this. I said, buddy, I'm struggling. I'm getting older. My reflexes aren't as quick. What drills can I work on to keep up with these young kids? And you laughed. You said, you're not. Like, I don't want to hear the truth. I want you to fluff it up and tell me you do this and you're going to be able to keep up with them. But, truth does hurt. But you're not wrong. And so I just kind of stay right there in my lane, and it worked out better for me. Yeah.
Because like I say, them kids, that's a whole new level. That's why the U.S. finals, it's mainly kids. You'll get some of the guys that they can kind of still hang with them or find one of them young kids and stuff like that can still rope someone at that level. But, there's a reason why, the 40 pluses and 50 plus ropings are so popular amongst a certain age, because it levels the playing field. You as a 4E is pretty level to another 50-year-old guy that's a 4E, as opposed to some of these young Thundercats that are a 4E.
Right. That kid you introduced me to, he won, gosh, I don't know how much in that week, but he's just
and you're like,
up.
That's not what your number is.
No.
I deal with those numbers every weekend, and you're not a 4.
Right. No doubt. He was a 4, right?
Yeah, and you can't. That's not,
The
but
hammer
like I say,
second hop.
Those kids, they can pick it up quick.
Right. Yeah. No, it was cool being there, and for sure we'll go back.
What did you feel like the difference was between the fresher cattle and smaller horns compared to the slower, bigger cattle with big horns from what you've been practicing on?
So what you helped me with was getting over there, staying, right there on about a foot away. Cause slower cattle at home, I can be out, in the passing lane, like you like to call it. And you can reach over there with the bigger horns, and you don't have to worry about waving them off. But the smaller horn cattle that are running hard, if I'm over to the left too far, is waving them off. So you you videoed me a few times. Yeah, you videoed me a few times. You had me run over there, keep my horse in because he was leaking out. I was able to start drawing knots on him pretty good after that. But, it's just somebody to point that out to you. I had no idea. You had a couple of videos. You showed me, helped me slow him down in the corner a little bit, and the 45, 90, 110 angles that you talk about, that helped quite a bit handling those cattle. And then after you left, roping with, I was over at Troy Pfeiffer's place, and he's a healer, and we worked on that, and he's like, yeah, that was way better. So it's good.
Yeah, the right angles, man, they do help a lot. And that's some of the hardest things, I think, sometimes is when you go for them barn cattle, bigger cattle, they know how to handle. Most of them run the rope. Mm-hmm. You have to be wide enough because they're bigger horns. So you got to make sure you don't cut that left horn off with your horse. So you got to stay wide. And they're slow enough. You got to stay wide. The wider you are on slower cattle helps keep them moving. Mm-hmm. Well, then you do that on a fresher steer. If you don't wave it off, then you're so wide that it's just going to roll the steer. Then your heeler's chasing across the pen. So it's difficult in the fact of that. Those are things that do have to be adjusted, and it's hard to get realistic practice sometimes. And if that's all you have the opportunity to do, and then when you go somewhere else and you're almost practicing when you get there. Mm-hmm. So it's good to get there early enough and try to find similar setups in the practice pen that are going to match what the jackpot may be.
And that's the plan next year. We'll get there 2 days earlier, or just rope for 2 days, practice for 2 days, and then before we start jackpotting, just to get our feet back, underneath us. But yeah, that's all I was going to say.
How hard is it? So what is your business? What do you do?
I actually work for Emery & Sons now. We do underground construction, all aspects of underground utility. I'm an estimator, project manager, so it's easy enough to get away now. Before, when I was running the crews, I had to be on site most of the time. But nowadays, I was able to go down and actually work. Well, it rained. I brought the rain with me, unfortunately, but I was able to work on some bids while I was there. We'd rope for 2 or 3 days. Then it rained, and I was able to work remotely and get my bids turned in. So in the future, I'd like to kind of implement that.
So you're able to maybe get away a little bit now to be able to do that, and where you're at now in work.
Yeah, correct. I can get away at least for 2 weeks, 2.5 weeks. Yeah, that's how long we were down there this time.
How hard is it to balance, you feel like, between work and roping?
It's tough, as all working men know on the hobby deal. So just get home, you get home about 6 o'clock, and 6 or 7 o'clock, do your chores, rope the dummy for a little bit, and it's time to go to bed. So you still have to put the time in. Even, I don't get to ride as often as I'd like. Of course, it rains in the Northwest all the time. I can ride outside. If I'm lucky, maybe 2 days a week. If it's not raining, I've got a pretty good sand round pen I can exercise the horses in. But man, just getting the time in and roping the dummy is one thing, but riding your horses, like we were talking about earlier, is your body position, the balance, and then of course the age factor. If you're not on it, buddy, I just feel like I'm behind all the time. So I work on it as much as I possibly can just to stay relevant, but it's tough.
It is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've been trying to get you home or to my house to where we can rope again a little bit like we used to do, like when you'd come down to Llano and stuff like that when I lived there. But it's been, just to get to where a guy can get that balance back, because I think so many people, like we talked, you'd call me a lot of times on the mental game.
Yeah.
What, my mental game, man, I'm nervous here, I'm nervous there. And I thought one of the best movies that I had ever watched was that movie 7 Days in Utopia. And it was, and the book's even better. But it was by David Cook. Mm-hmm. He wrote that book. Well, Trey Johnston, he's good friends with David. And so we were at a Bible camp a couple years ago and in Arizona, and he called David. And I just got to talk to him and stuff like that. And, he had a really good 3-step process in his psychology on how he basically makes a successful golf shot. And he talked about seeing it, feeling it, and trusting it. And so he said, because what you see creates a feeling. So if you see yourself splitting the horns or waving it off or hitting him in the back of the head, that creates a feeling, usually a feeling of inconfidence where it tightens you up almost, where you're almost battling your conscience and your subconscious at the same time.
Yeah.
Then he talks about then when you visualize, hitting the start, running up there and drawing a knot off, and then just putting the jelly on the biscuit right there where your heeler just bam, 2 feet after you post them up, that creates a feeling, almost a feeling of confidence.
Right.
And so you're trying to find a process on how to make that successful run so it's something you can trust when you put your money up. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I think sometimes the mental game sometimes can be a little bit overrated in certain aspects. And what I mean by that is if a guy's got a swing that's not staying open and is heading the wrong direction and is headed off to the left, say your turnover's too late and it's headed off to the left and you throw it to the right and it just hits one horn, well, you catch 1 out of 3 or 1 out of 5 and then you're blaming on the mental game. That's not the situation. The fact is there's a chink in your armor. There's a flaw in your foundation.
Right.
You get the correct swing down to where you can feel when that top strand's over the bottom strand and how to keep that thing opened up where it's headed to the horns and you know exactly where that thing's going. Then, okay, now if you're catching good in the practice pin, but then you're not catching good in the jackpot, then, okay, now we may have a mental situation.
Yep. But what helped me too was you had mentioned one time on one of your podcasts, and you can't recall the guy's name, but he was a sniper you were talking about, and he went through a mental checklist every time he went on his call. So I've started doing that. I ride in the box, and I'll think of the same thing every time I look at the pin. It kind of helps calm my nerves. And one of the things you taught me was, or you suggested was, find your tip before you ride in the box. Swing your tip down towards the ground, find a dirt clod or something, hit that dirt clod with your tip, and that's check that off. So once you know your rope, where your rope is, then your mind's right. I feel like I'm better, ready, more prepared to go on a run than if I just ride in the box, just blurt out. And I'd ask you several times, well, what do you think about it? And you're like, hell, I don't know. Half the time I black out. Well, that's not helping me. And then, I remember about 3 or 4 years into your run when you're making the NFR every year, you started seeking help or advice from people on how to get the mental game strong. So I've always admired that you worked hard to get that in your repertoire, and wish we could talk about that a little bit more, how you get prepared. But
that one of the best mental books I've ever read was With Winning in Mind by Lanny Basham. And I went and took a couple courses with him up there in Flower Mound, Texas. And he's an Olympic shooter. And so he would talk about the preload, being able to visualize the run that you want to make before you make it.
Okay.
Where you're basically in your subconscious just making that run and making that run.
Mm-hmm.
And, like we talked earlier, I think there's a time and a place for certain things. I think the most important thing about roping at anything, whether it's team roping, breakaway, head and heeling, whatever it is, if you don't catch, you ain't winning nothing.
Right.
And so you've got to learn how to keep that loop open.
Mm-hmm.
You've got to learn how to know how to get that steer caught if his right horn ducks to the right,
mm-hmm.
or he drops his left horn, if he slows down, if he gets his horns on the fence, if it's big horns, little horns. Because if you don't catch a jackpot, you ain't winning nothing.
Right.
So you got to figure out the rope. Then the next is the horsemanship. And that's probably the most overlooked subject, I think, a lot of times, because it's easy to understand, because when you nod your head, you're trying to catch.
Mm-hmm.
And
everything else goes out the window.
Right. And she's trying to catch, because if you don't catch, you don't win nothing. Well, then what happens now? Now we haven't developed our left-handed feet.
Yeah.
And you got to think, too, is like, what does that produce? Well, what sets up the run, the start?
Right.
Well, what does that? Your left-handed feet. That horse scoring off your hand where you hit the start, it sets up your position. It sets and handles the steer. It faces the rope, your horse on the tight rope.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much where they've got to learn to work together. And so once those foundations are set and you've got to run, that's when reps come.
Yeah.
That's when you need rep after a rep after a rep after a rep. You've got to get that thing down to where when the money's up, you have a run you can trust.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's where I think sometimes the mental game has gotten in people's head a little bit when there's a chink in their armor, there's a flaw in their foundation, or a flaw in their swing, a flaw in their riding, and then they're blaming on the mental game. Well, I think when those things are overcome and you get consistent with it, then I think that's when confidence shows up, because then you start having a run you can trust, where you know where the moving parts are of the run.
Right.
Because for me, everyone was telling me don't all the time, My dad was trying to keep me alive. Charlie, don't stick your finger in the light socket. Charlie, don't step behind the horse. You're going to get kicked. It was everything was a don't. And so when you take that to a run, don't break out, don't miss, don't do something stupid.
Right.
Your conscious is questioning your subconscious. So you tighten up, you don't breathe as good, and you don't have nothing you're trusting because you're telling yourself what not to do.
Yeah.
So for me, it's been since I've retired and done more clinics. Okay. I remember how frustrating it was back then when the only advice you would get was don't.
Mm-hmm.
okay, well, what, like, remember all the ones like my dad would holler, get in position. That'd be great, Dad. Where is it?
What is it? Yeah.
Where is it? That'd be, and saying it obviously a little politer than that because, for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
But it was like, where is it? Well, you know where it's at. It's so, he's like, do as I say, don't do as I do.
Well,
kind of thing.
We were talking about this earlier. I said, what do you mean, like, get ahead of your horse? When you came over for a few hours the other day, you were like, get ahead of your horse. What does that mean, bud?
Well, like for me, I remember, like, the amount of times I get my butt, she's like, ride your horse. I thought I did. I stayed on.
I didn't fall off.
I did ride him.
I had the wrong hat on, though.
Wrong pad.
Wrong pad.
Yeah.
And bell boots.
Yeah. Got bucked off and the other wrong pad. Yeah. And I got bucked off and beat up. It was great. Good times.
Right. Sorry about that. Lord, I apologize.
But no, that's where it's like, now it's like you gotta define where all the moving parts of the run are. So then that way you can tell yourself what you're going to do. Mm-hmm. So that way, like the winners, man, you got them guys that, man, when they ride in the box, they know what they're going to do. Yeah. They even know what time of a run they're going to make. They know like T-Wade, when he had to be 5'6" 2 years ago to win the world, they were 5'5".
Right.
You know what I mean? That's sharp, but
amazing.
that's making that run. Last year, I think they had to be 4'1". They were 3'8" or 3'9". Yeah. You know what I mean? They know how to make that run. You can't be telling yourself what not to do in that situation.
Yeah, which where we rope, it's like, hey, I'm happy I just made a run.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, to me, if you're 4E, if you hit the start, get your horse rated off, get ahead of your horse, your swings go in the right spot, dally, hit the right spots of the run on the left-hand side of the arena and handle the steer, that's it. There is no time.
Right.
Now you just rope whatever you draw. If you out late, you're probably going to be longer.
Go. And I was telling you after that, our little session the other day, I went to, I think it was 11 and a half roping. And boy, it seemed like it took forever to set that run up, and that heeler behind me just hammered him, right? It just seemed like it took forever to make that corner, and we were a long 7, short 8, whatever it was. It's like, wow, that makes some sense. You're right. Just get out, get it on them, and let the run take its course. And it just seemed like it took forever to develop, but it was a great handle, and I just kind of learned from there.
Yeah. Yeah, to me, that keeps it simple, because I think a lot of times, too, is there's so much focus on things you can't control.
Yeah. Well, the big deal was you kept telling me my horse wasn't leveling out, and the horns were moving. I'm like, yeah, he's moving, he's running. You ding dong, of course he's moving. But what you meant was, right? I'm overrunning I'm missing my shot.
Mm-hmm.
And
so you weren't rating in position.
Yeah.
So like rating in position. So say the steer's going 20 miles an hour, your horse is going 30.
Mm-hmm.
His job is to, when he gets close to position, start going for 30, 25, and 20 in position. Yeah. That levels off or rates off. That way now the horns stay in place, especially on smaller horns.
I totally missed that. I was more focused on just getting up there and getting to where I'm like, time's ticking, man, throw.
Mm.
Well,
almost a speed jam then.
Yeah, for sure. But then again, once I backed off and kind of got him rating right there, boy, it's easy to saw the bones off those.
Well, not only does it help you place your rope, but then also sets up your handle, or sets up your corner.
Yeah.
When you go by, then you have to rate, slow back down, get it tight, then turn off. Well, if your horse rates in position, then you're able to rope it, because now the horns are staying in place. Now, as you pull your slack, you're just able to slow down just barely a little bit, and it's already tight. Then you can step out, so it speeds up your run. Think of how many hops you're losing going down the pin because your horse overrun it. Then you had to slow them back down and get it tight, then turn off.
Yeah, for sure.
If it didn't wave off on small horns, because that's a huge recipe for waving off, is them horses going through your throw.
Well, I think I asked you too. So coming from the slow cattle that we rope up there in the Northwest down to those fast cattle, and I'm pushing my horse, and all of a sudden he's freeing up, he's running. Mm-hmm. Now he's just running to run, and he's kind of like, what cow? So I'm like, this is an obvious question, but do those horses have to adapt to that as well? Well, of course they do, but you don't think about that, right? You just go one to the other.
And you have a running horse, so this horse he's got some run in him.
Mm-hmm.
And so those are the ones you have to get ahead of. And that term, getting ahead of your horse, that's set up from the back of the box. From that first swing, when and where and how, those are all techniques that a guy has to get developed, because that gets you ahead of it. Once you get ahead of your horse, it's so much easier to rate him.
Yeah, let me dial down on that one. I asked Charlie again, okay, explain to me, get ahead, right? So you said, all right, I wrestled in high school. He said, you wrestled. How's your stance when you're wrestling? Your shoulders are over your toes.
Mm-hmm.
Not too far over because you're off balance, but I was kind of sitting on my ass, right? So explain to me.
Well, if your first swing isn't brought up correctly, it's real easy to get blown in the back of your saddle. So if your first swing is out of time, So when the horse goes forward, if you're not able to get your swing behind you or the rope behind you in the correct spot with the correct technique, to where then you're able to bring your first swing up where your shoulders are still staying over your toes. Because once you see your start, left hand goes forward and your shoulders go over your toes. Well, now when and where you bring your first swing up, them shoulders still have to stay over them toes.
Right. And let me point out, again, with the slow cattle, we drop the hammer and then we pull.
Mm-hmm.
And then what happens? My shoulders go back, sitting on my
Shoulders
butt,
just
tip
behind
goes in
your
the
heels.
air.
Yep,
right.
exactly.
So we're working on that, dropping the hammer and just staying forward and living with your start, and especially down there with those cattle are fresh.
Mm-hmm.
If they,
because you would go then pick up.
Yeah.
And then you're already out or not, one or the other. But so you got to commit. Once you go, the start's there. So it's just one of those things where you got to be able to learn how to ride and point your horse where you're wanting to go and learn how to catch, staying out of his way. Clay Smith, Driggers, some of the best guys at it. Trevor, obviously, but then you got guys like Clinton Summers. Some of those guys are such great jockeys. They can point that horse where to go and still get their first swing up and point them where they want to go and stay out of their way and still be able to catch. Right. Like, it's phenomenal what they can do. But those are techniques that need developed, because what that does, that gets you ahead of your horse. When you get ahead of your horse, that's when your first swing is when your shoulders stay over your toes, and then you can find that rhythm. Right. That rhythm is when you're able to swing in stride with that horse. So that way you're already ahead of the run. What I mean by being ahead of the run is you're already out in front of your horse with your swing going, ready to rope 2 or 3 strides before you get to position. Mm-hmm. So now when you get there, now all you got to do is rate, and then your swing's already headed where it needs to go, and you can get ahead of the run. Mm-hmm. So, but like I say, those are all things that need developed, because I think once you get that and get it developed, then after that, now you got a run you can trust. That's what's been fun about the fraternities for me is, and those are the runs that I'm trying to perform. When I was going to the fraternities and stuff, those are the runs I was trying to get. I was trying to hit the start, get my horse rated up there, and be ready to rope, and then hit the right spots on the left-hand side of the arena. So post them suckers up and show them, make them look good. But also I got to have a decent time as I'm doing it to enhance that, the score. Yeah. So those are all the little things I'm just dissecting. So in that way, when you're trying to help guys make that same run, in jackpots, like, this is the recipe for that run. And once you get it down, now it's just rep after rep after rep.
I was talking to you earlier when we were eating lunch about why futurities over jackpots, and you were explaining that that's a good recipe. Those guys ride right to the hip like we do. They back the horses off or whatever, and then they rope in that same spot, and then the handles are great. So that's what you prefer now, really, over.
It just fits where I'm at now. Yeah. I still enjoy being around Joseph and Trevor and those guys. I enjoy being around the top guys in the world. Those are artists on what they can do with those horses. What they're doing, they're getting rep after rep, and they're Tate Kirkenslogger, they're getting these patterns developed on these horses in a training program that, they're figuring this out. And so when I go there, I'm learning so much. And so it helps me with my horsemanship. It helps me with my clinics. And I love the culture. Mm-hmm. I love being able to go over there for one day and come back home. But I've learned something on every single fraternity that I've been to, because I'll go to the top guys and go rope with them for a little bit and learn something each time. And that just helps me better with my horses and teaching. I'm not saying I probably wouldn't learn as much going and competing again, but I just know that if you're going to hang with those cats, you better be out there. Mm-hmm. For me to think that I'm going to hang with those guys and barely get to compete, and it's kind of like Lay's potato chips too. It's hard to just go to one. Yeah, you got to go, because if you're not going to a couple of them almost before you go there, then you're not sharp. Sure. And for where I'm at right now, it's just the fraternities kind of line up with a little bit better with the amount of clinics that I do now.
Yeah, it's pretty cool to see your horsemanship develop as it has. You jumped on my horse the other day, and what'd you tell me? He was just kind of waffling a little bit to the left as he got up there. Didn't really know where to go with his speed, and he was just stepping out early. So it's just something I never picked up on either. And you're like, just hold, keep him right there. And sure enough, it made sense after you videoed and I got to see it. It's a visual thing, but I didn't even realize he was stepping out right there.
Well, and that's where them guys like Trevor and Tate and, Red Richard and all them guys, they ride so many a day. Their left-handed feet are so good. They don't even realize that if that horse is stepping out, they're just using a little bit more left rein, a little more left leg, and they're not even thinking about it.
Wait a minute. You're telling me 2 hours a week doesn't get it done? Hold on a second.
Well, I think you can. If a guy knows what to do. I think if you've got a recipe of what you're trying to work on, I really do. I think a couple hours you can do it. I'm just saying those guys' performance on what they can make those horses look like. Yeah.
I'm kidding.
It is a lot of work.
I'm kidding.
But I think but what they're doing, it can be easily taught.
Right.
And the guy can do a couple hours. Because I think if a guy's roping and just competing, those guys are training. They're trying to get these horses done. But I think competing, much more than a couple hours after that, sometimes I think you can do too much. I've done that before where, 8-9 hours out there all, and then you kind of almost dread it. And it's like, all right, could I have not gotten this done within a couple hours? Yeah. Kind of learned that later.
True.
But I was also still trying to find a run. Yeah.
But I was just kidding about the fact that we only get to rope twice a week, maybe, 3 times if we're lucky.
Yeah, twice a week's tough, but a couple hours I think is fine. But yeah, if a guy could bump it up to 3 or 4 times, that would definitely enhance it for sure.
Overfeed them all week long and then go out and expect them to work perfect.
Yeah, in a stall because it's been raining all week.
I asked you one time what you feed your horses to, just trying to uncover any nugget that I could to try to help out. I do have that running horse, and if I don't get to work him and overfeed him, then he's like getting on a rocket. Speaking of which, I got to ride your horses one time. You want to jump into that?
I forgot where it was. I remember been so many of them, but I remember so many instances where I forgot. I think I felt like, you rode Peppy for a long time. That was one of my best horses.
You ended up giving me Peppy.
Yeah.
He ended up at the place, like 3.5
That's the horse
legs.
that taught me how to win.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. I remember I was at one of your jackpots and jumped on him, and you said, "Oh yeah, go into the money horse." And sure enough, he was just solid.
Mm-hmm.
That dude, he had like 3.5 legs.
Yeah. No tripod. Yeah. He was awesome. Yeah. He had a stick drove up his leg, I think when Kevin Stewart owned him, or maybe Wayne Shaw. I forgot. But anyways, he ended up just having a pimp limp, he just, man, just walked into the room, man, just had that freaking strut to him, like he'd been shot in a few shells. Now he walks with a limp. He's a play a pimp, man.
On gin and juice. Laid back.
I love that horse, man. He was awesome.
Well, so you had that armadillo horse. That was that was in my mind like the first.
Well, I think, when you had him, that was like I said, my goal for that was for you to learn how to ride one that knows how to win, where you go rope.
Well, let me tell you. So I remember exactly. We were up at amateur rodeo in Washington, and my other horse got hurt. And you said you were there also. You said you were taking our money, but you said, "What do you ride?" And I go, "All I have is this young horse." And you go, "Well, jump on mine." Okay. And you said you were in the box with him. I think I was first gunner. You said, "Just go when I say go." And it's like I jumped on a rocket ship, man.
Yeah, that was Armadillo. Yeah, that was the horse of the BFI. In 2004, and I think reserve world champion head horse in 2005. In the PRCA, he won second for horse of the year behind Thumper.
Right,
and he was a running bred horse.
Oh my gosh,
he was.
It was like, I bet you my eyes were probably the size of saucers, and they were watering. And the guy that was healing for me, I mean, I didn't do anything. Right, I just got out and placed the rope on him, and we were going left, and my healer was like, "Where'd he go?
Where'd who go?"
Yeah, like Top Gun. We were watching it. And now I know what Dougie feels like.
I need some focus by these healers. I mean, can you not see I'm stepping my game up?
I was ahead of my time.
This horse was a horse of the BFI, for crying out loud. I'm doing my part.
Do you not know who I am?
We can light these 7.5s on fire.
Maybe if I get out of the truck. And then so you left him at the house for a little bit. He was hurt, and I was taking care of him, and then you let me ride him, which is awesome. And then again, during your runs, you dropped off like Tejas one time.
Yeah, I roped on him in the NFR, won Pendleton on him. That was probably one of the easiest horses I ever had.
Yeah.
Score, had good run, real flat and easy, but he just went wherever you want him to go and get face.
Oh yeah, for sure. And then you said, "Hey, just keep him, just practice on him, keep him in there, keep him freed up for me." And then finally you said, "Well, hey, if you want to take us to some amateur rodeos, go ahead." Sweet. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, "Hey, this is all right." I remember, I think Riley Minor called you and said, "Hey, Dan's looking pretty good on this horse," and you took him from me. As soon as I got to where I could ride him, thanks. Gone.
Yeah. That's back when I probably had 3 or 4 of them, so I'd be able to keep them rotated.
Right.
And that one was, you just want to keep them rode, so somebody has to be able to ride them and keep them rode and keep them legged up, and then.
But it lets me see the difference of what when you guys
what that feels
about,
like. Huh?
Yeah, when you guys have to have those top horses versus what we have, which we don't need where we're at, but it is.
But you can see where it enhanced.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
All of a sudden there was the horns and
yeah, easy, easy enough.
Yeah, I remember that. I remember how tickled you'd be when you get done calling, and because that was the stuff that I was going through before that. Trying to compete at that level on horses that just weren't good enough. And then I think Pook let me on his horse. Jason Stewart let me on his horse. And that's when I started like, oh, hell, that this is what I'm missing. Because when I get on him, I would win money.
Right.
And I'm like, okay, I can rope. I just ain't mounted.
Just real quick, where'd you get Armadillo? I forget.
I was working in Salado, Texas, over there at Billy Pipes' arena with Chris Lawson. And we had a bunch of horses taken in that we were riding for a month, and I forget how little we charged to ride them each month, and we'd get commission if we sold them. And this guy came in and wanted way too much for him, and he was there for I don't know how long. And it was one of them deals where me and Chris was riding him one day, and he showed up and he had a brow band on him and 2 tie downs. I'm like, dude, don't wear that in public. That looks so embarrassing. This is back when I had no filter.
Right.
And
wait.
Yeah, shut up.
Wait, there was ever a filter?
So, thanks, you're a little pretty immature with my words. And I'm like that. No. Like, he just doesn't know his job.
Right.
He's like, well, we've had him for this long. I'm like, well, then it was like a dare. I'm like, well, I bet I can get him right within the other week.
Yeah.
So I took all that crap off and put a regular tie down on him. I don't know much about bits, especially then. I know more about him now than I did then, but I just put just a normal bit in him, and I think it was maybe a Petska chain, and but I rode him. Like, I went out there, and this is before we had 4-wheelers and Smarties and stuff like that. So I just pin roped a bunch, and then when Billy Pipes Bear, when he was healing, Billy Pipes' boy, when he get back from school, I'd already pin roped on him that day, and then when he got in there, I'd pin rope again and just turn him some steers out in the arena, nothing out of the box. Well, then we bring the steers back up again, and then after that, then we bring the steers up, and I'd score a couple, and turn them 5 or 10, and score in between. And by the end of the week, I was like, "Hey, this sucker!" But I also rode him too.
Yeah. Gave him a job.
Yeah, and spent some time on him. Enough to where, like I said, it was kind of a bet before. We were just kind of riding him, but like get him to catch on, and then after that, I was like, kind of like really thought like, okay, how can I make this one? I think he was riding him, and now we kind of split the horses up. And so when I took him over, I'd been watching him enough to where I was kind of like, all right, I got a game plan. This is how I think I'm going to attack this. But like, I rode him a lot. And I remember when I worked there at Salado, I went over to Billy's to go rope one day. Well, he lived on the other side of the interstate. I'm like, only maybe a mile or 2, maybe 5. Either way, it wasn't as far.
Never would do it numbers.
Well, it was just enough. Exactly. It was just enough where I'm like, well, this will be perfect. He'll be warmed up and kind of rode down before I get there. Yeah. Except for I had to ride over the top of the interstate. If any of you ever have a chance to ride over the overpass on the interstate, don't. That was by far, talk about pucker. One of them semis just comes blowing right under you. I'm not sure what this horse is going to do. This horse ain't sure what he's going to do. Yeah, I got to ride back. But I was like, yeah, once I lived through that situation, then yeah, I just rode him, just kind of. When I got then after that, he kind of turned into a decent horse, and offered the guy a price on him, and he took it, and then I just rode him.
Right.
It was a project. It took me a couple of years to kind of get him somewhat solid after that, but then when he did, he got it. He was a sweet horse. That was a sweet animal.
He's cool. Yeah,
but accident prone. I remember he'd get hurt all the time just being in a pen.
No, you dropped him off. I think he run a bolt through his side or something that one time, and got to keep him at the house.
Don't even know how he did it.
Nope.
Yeah, he was hard to keep sound, that's for sure. And that's the biggest part, I think, of, when a guy was out there trying to stay competitive was, man, that's sometimes roping's the easy part. Keeping them suckers sound where you can make a living on, that gets to be the tough part.
Yeah.
If you're interested in coming to a clinic this year, my 2025 clinic schedule is posted on charlycrawford.training. Go there and see if we are headed to an arena near you. If you're wanting to host a clinic, I have a few dates available. May 30th through June 1st, July 11th through 13th, August 29th through 31st, September 12th through the 14th, September 26th through the 28th. My October is open, and November. All the details and the easy sign-up form can be found on my website under the Clinics tab. If you have any questions, email me at charlycrawford.training@gmail.com.
When did we meet? I can't remember. Was I 11? Was I 12? What?
It was
the Viola days.
No,
wasn't
it was
it?
in Canby, a little jackpot in Canby when they used to have them in that little indoor building. And
there's fairgrounds?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep, like you were 11 or 12. And honestly, I think I roped you through Dad a little bit first, and then got to, well, like I said, you were kicking our butts. That was when we had the, not really a numbering system, but it was, like the
Pro-Am, or not the Pro-Am, but the...
Based on money won.
Yeah. There was an open, then I think there was a...
Over under 1,500 or something like that.
Yeah.
So anyway,
the mixed junior seniors.
Yeah. So I was roping with your dad.
Novice, pro-novice.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's what they were.
And then, got to kind of buddy up with like you and your dad and Steve Johnston, all those guys were on there, Rocky and them. And then I lived in Canby, and then you guys invited me over to teach me how to rope better, teach me how to rope, period. And just kind of stuck out from there.
Because I think I remember my dad stuck me. I think I had a clinic when I was 12 there at the house.
Yep.
And talked about trying to teach me how to do it quick, and it was kind of intimidating at 12, having guys older than me trying to learn how to rope. But it was good for me because it really did help me try to learn a lot more things about roping and teaching them. I'm sure it had to be horrible. But I mean, it was kind of funny though when I look back, like that's how long I've been trying to learn how to teach.
Yeah. Well, we didn't know any better.
Since then.
It was great for the time right there.
Mm-hmm.
But and then would come over to your house after work and most every day, I think.
Yeah, I remember that was a fun time. I think it was you and Brad Dolan.
Yeah, Brad Dolan. Right.
That made sense. And then, I remember he would heel and you would head. And that's when roping kind of got fun for me because I had someone else to spar with. And,
right.
And other than my dad, because I think most of the time it was just him and I out there practicing. There's a few guys that would come over here and there, but you was the first time when you would come over, I got to rope without my dad, and it was actually fun.
And you got to heel a little bit, too. You were pretty excited about that.
Yeah. I think the first year I ever heeled was 2 feet behind you. That was fun.
We won't talk about the other stuff that went on there. But at the time, my wife would come over, and, my girlfriend at the time, she'd come over and open the chutes for us. And that's
then I think Brad's girlfriend maybe videoed or something. But, we got to go rope and video and watch it and kind of break it down.
Right. That's when...
Yeah, but that's when you had the video cameras though on your shoulder. Remember that?
Gigantic, yeah. And then
go watch
from there we'd go like hang out and watch the NFR, and you'd be roping that cowboy toy, and then it just kind of took off. Got to be buds after that. You're quite a bit younger, but you always hung around the older guys anyway.
Yeah. It was more of a brothership. It felt like, because I remember the times when things got hard at home or just doing anything, that you were always my safety net where I was always able to go. You weren't very far, so I was always able to go over there and kind of get away from whatever.
And then throughout growing up, you'd call me on the road when you were rodeoing somewhere, tired or having issues, whatever, and we'd just chat, man, a lot of times, just for hours, kind of get you through some of the issues you were having.
Decisions that were being made that weren't thought out beforehand.
You need to start calling me before you throw your rope back.
Charlie, these problems were avoidable. Starting right about here.
Charlie, is that a good life decision right now? Seemed like it at the time.
It was fun.
Yeah, right. You got everyone for not having fun, I can tell you that.
Oh, that was a long time. It felt like from the time I left for high school till the time I got to that first NFR.
Right.
Man.
Well, man, remember you were shoeing horses, living over in Prineville, I think, or going to school, whatever, and you stop by the house and stay there. And you'd go have a few toddies or whatever, and you'd sleep on the couch. And I remember just chatting with you about it. Like, man, are you gonna take this advantage or not? I mean, you've got it.
Well, I remember me and my dad got in a fight, and I moved out. And so it was kind of I was in a tough spot, mentally, just kind of where's my life going? I remember I think I was living over there in Pendleton with Bobby Alexander.
Mm-hmm.
And I was coming over to shoe with Dale Lyons.
That's right.
He would, in the fall time, he would get pretty busy and stuff like that, luckily, because that helped keep me alive. So I was over there pulling and finishing for him. So I would come over there and stay at your house and shoe for however long I could and help him get caught up. And it was great money. He paid me great. And, we ran through a lot of horses.
Right.
And it was a great opportunity because that was kind of a dead time in a way for shoeing in a lot of other places except for that spot. And so those are the things that kept me alive. And then it was one of them where I was roping good. I was roping pretty good, and wasn't really getting seen. But my horses were finally kind of starting to produce a little bit. Like Armadillo was getting good. I had Peppy and maybe another colt, I forget. But anyways, I was in a pretty good spot, roping good, and horses were decent. And Buck Campbell called.
Mm-hmm.
I said, hey, Chuck, I think we need to go make the finals. And so where I'm off over there shoeing and trying to get enough money so I can survive the winter.
Right.
And I'm sure making great decisions.
Yeah.
Right. And luckily you did. You treated me like a younger brother. Like, hey, this is a chance.
Right.
Like this is something. This is that. Remember that opportunity? You keep wondering why things aren't going well. This is your opportunity.
Yeah, seize it,
You've
man.
been waiting for this for a long time. So let's not jack around and let's take this seriously.
Yep. Go try or and then come home or not. But you're going to kick yourself in the ass if you don't go try.
Mm-hmm. And I never not said yes. It was just one of them to where it was like, you know, when he called, it was yes. Yeah. It was one of them like that's fine, but like, hey, how about we take this a little more seriously? Like, I think there's some certain things here in these certain spots right here that we could probably tighten some things
up. And the
up.
funny thing was, man, neither one of us had money. You had holes on your boots. I had less holes in my boots. I gave you my boots. And then, I'm like, you got like presentable and whatever, helped you with some gas money, and off you went, man. It was good stuff.
Yeah.
But man, so you were so broke. The one rodeo that we love to talk about, you said early rodeo, you won some tires. You won the year.
I was needing them bad.
Yeah,
I was needing them real bad.
So happy about that. But let's delve into that a little
bit.
Well,
that's one of them things too. Like any committees, like thinking about that. I think it was a Les Schwab tire deal, and man, those are great. Those are great prizes to win. You know, buckles are great, but like those are things we blow through a lot.
I know it.
Yeah, and so it was a serious deal. Where the heck was it? Olympia. Yeah, I was over there shoeing.
Mm-hmm. Now let's talk about that story, Betty. Let's talk about another one of those not great life decisions right now.
I can't believe we're still friends.
All right, everybody sit down for this one. We got just a minute.
I can't believe we're still friends after that one.
I loved it, but I just
not at the time.
No, I got to blame every bit of my trouble on you, which is good shit right there.
Yeah, I went over there all week and shod for Dale, and then that weekend, I think it was a Friday or Saturday.
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, Saturday.
I think it was Saturday. Yeah, Saturday Night Live, and so he was like, "Oh man, that'd be so much fun." How far is it up there to Olympia? I don't know, 2.5, 3 hours, something like that. Not very far. Oh man, I'd love to go. Well, then go. Let's go. Yeah. Let me ask Kristen.
Well, I got the boys. I told her.
No, this was the first.
Yeah, okay.
And he's like, I can't go, man. The boys, this and that. I was like, well, bring him.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, we got TVs in there. Got semi. They'll love it back there.
It'd be a good trip.
Yeah.
Uncle Charlie.
And you're like, really? You don't care? Hell no.
Yeah.
Hell no. Jump them on in. Throw them on in. So he goes back in and tells Kristen, he comes back out and he's like, okay, I can go, but I got to be home early.
Yeah.
No problem.
We can't jack around, man.
No problem. All I heard was early.
Yeah.
And so you got the kids. We got, I don't think the Lion King going on the TV, if I remember right.
They're like 5 and 8, something like that.
Yeah, they weren't very old.
No.
And so we go up there at Olympia. I think I win it.
You did.
And
won your tires.
Had to wait for my tire gift certificate.
That was your excuse.
And so.
Wait. Guess what they gave the certificate at the bar?
They just happened to have a bar that was right above the head box.
Right.
And so, you had to wait for the rodeo to get over so I can get my tires. Right. And, I was winning at pool like crazy that night, too.
Wait. Let's back up a minute. Here's my version of the truth. So I'm sitting there and you're like, hey, I have to go collect this gift certificate. I think it's up there at the bar. I'll be right back. Hey, no worries. I'm going to feed the boys anyway. Take your time, whatever.
Yeah, take your time. No hurry.
Dumb thing for me to say. So I'm sitting there. I feed the boys, and then I'm like, hey, I don't even think we had phones. I don't even know, but I think I went up there and said, hey, I'm gonna go out to the truck, get the keys, and we'll go watch a movie for a little bit. And you say, yeah, man, I'm kicking ass at pool right now. I'll be down in about an hour, about 9 o'clock. So okay, that'll put us home by whatever 11 o'clock. Okay, cool. So we go out there, sitting there watching the movie and stuff, and I'm looking at my clock and my wife. We did have cell phones. My wife calls. And I said, well, he's getting his money and stuff. He'll be back down there in a little bit. And we're fine. The boys are sleeping now, and about 9 o'clock rolls around, and 9:30. I'm like, I better go check on Charlie. So I walk in. I get this. I walk in the bar, and he's like, hey, buddy. And so I said, hey, man, we gotta go. And you're like, I'm killing it. I'm just throwing it right now. Just give me one more hour. Here we go again, right? Just give me one more. And the killer part was that these girls that were up there, they're like, aren't you the guy that was down there in the stand, Charlie's buddy with his kids, or with your kids? I go, yeah. And where are the kids? Well, they're on the truck. well, what a terrible father you are.
I think I threw you under the bus because I think
totally
we were talking.
Surprising.
And you kept saying like, hey, we need to go or something like that. And I threw like, don't you have kids?
Yeah.
They're like, oh my gosh.
Yeah. What an asshole.
And then I'm just slapping my knee.
Oh, man, I would have busted pull cue over your head so bad. But I need you to drive because I don't drive a semi, right? So finally, I don't know, 2:00, you rattle the door, jump in. I'm flipping
I think it
hot,
was
dude.
the freaking bar closed.
I know it was. Trust me. So you jump in. I'm like, you're 3 sheets to the wind, bro. You're like, I got it.
I gotta get some sunflower seeds.
Yeah, I got
get
it.
some Red Bull.
We're gonna stop at the store. I'll get us dialed. So we get there, and you come in. You got sunflower seeds slobbering out of your mouth, chew running down your face. Oh man, I just wanted to pummel you. So we get out on the road, and you're like, man, I'm tired. Can you drive?
Just for a little bit. Just for a little bit.
I have no choice because guess what? You just stand up and jump over in the seat. So you have it on cruise control. It's 2 a.m, rain like a son of a bitch, and the lights don't work on the trailer. And this is what I start doing.
This is where I'm at in my life. Yeah, for sure.
I start laughing. I'm like, I'm gonna die. No, he's gonna die. And you're all sprawled out, like your arms are hanging across the feet, and I'm just looking at you. And then finally, I don't know, 2 hours later, we get close, and I just reach over and smack you as hard as I can. I say, "Get up and drive." Oh, are we here already?
The sun's
Wow.
up. The sun's coming up.
That was a short drive.
We're already here?
So you pull in and you take it from there.
Dude, we pull in, and I think it was 7 a.m, maybe 6:30.
Oh, yeah. 7.
And we pull in, and your wife is in her bathrobe.
My sweet angel is a wife.
Hitting outside of the door. And I'm like,
rolling pin in hand.
Not good. This is not good. And you looked up at me and you go, I'm so screwed. Like, I can't believe this. And I said, hey man, you said early. I ain't been up this early and I don't know how long. This is so early. Like the sun just came up.
Oh man, I wanted to kill you so bad. And then I had this little bunkhouse out back, and this little chicken shit jumped out of the truck and runs over there and locks the door. And I don't even know if you put your horses up. I don't know if you had to, but man, I just want to kill you. And anyhow.
I remember she left to go get nachos or something for Sunday, I think, to watch the game. And I come poking my head in. I said, are you in trouble? He goes, no, but you are.
Oh, I totally threw you under the bus. Imagine that.
Yeah. Yeah.
Tough.
Yeah. I'm surprised at that one. Yeah.
But the cool part was years later.
Remember the kids loved it.
Oh, they thought it was great. Can we do that again? That was so much fun. Yeah. But as you matured, I'm using my fingers as air quotes. As you matured later on in life, you said, hey, I finally understand. I'm sorry. Because Billy Bob Brown did that to you somewhere down the road. And you said, hey, I get it now. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Bob, when Bob got in the rig, I called a lot of people and apologized. I called you. I called Cross. Now I see what they're talking about.
Yeah, some other things you did to me. I was visiting you in Llano, and I was going to go watch you at a roping over at Tyler Magnus's place. And we get there. It was supposed to be an open. There wasn't very many people, and they're just going to have a round robin. And you said, "Hey, I entered you." So what? What the hell did you enter me for? Well, cuz, what else you going to do? You're here to rope, right? So I go ahead and I'm like, well, okay, you give me one of your horses, and I go, and I don't really understand the rules or whatever, but I'm roping with like Mickey Gomez and Rich Skelton was there, and, a handful of really, really good guys. And here I am. Well, I ended up making it back, and I was roping with Rich, and as me, I made it back, and Tyler Magnus and somebody else. And I'm just thinking, this is great. This is great fun, man. I'm just having fun. And then Tyler, he looks over and it just mean mugs me. I'm like, what's going on? And he just stares me down, and it blew my skirt up. So anyway,
he had an intense look when he'd heal one, huh?
Dude, yeah. Well, it was kind of like there's 3 of us that made it back out of the people that were there, and he got into my head, and I ended up slapping it in the back of the head with Rich. All I had to do for Rich was turn it, but that was my claim to fame, is I got to go down.
How fun was that though, to go heal with the guys?
Yeah, man, that was awesome.
Rope with the guys, that was fun. Yeah, those were times where it was like, yeah, don't think, just jump in there.
But didn't.
Yeah.
Couldn't.
Yeah, I remember there's a few times, like once I kind of got out there, like I remember, because you're so used to organized, and our industry, there's there's a lot of times where you just got to fly. My wife explains this to me all the time, but she takes it to another level. But I was kind of there a little bit myself. But like, I remember when you got to Houston, and you flew like,
Kristen and I flew down to Houston to meet Charlie, and my wife's very organized. She says, "Well, where are we meeting him?" I don't know. We'll just call him when we get down there.
He said, "Don't worry about it."
Yeah, don't worry about it. He just said, "Don't worry about it. He'll find us. He'll find us in Houston." Yeah, we're good. So we get down there. We're dragging our suitcases along the street. I had the cab drop us off at the, what was that, the Astrodome or the Houston Rodeo, wherever it was.
Yeah, I think it was Reliant then, I think. Yeah.
So we're standing on the street corner, and all of a sudden I hear, honk, honk, and here he comes in this semi around the corner. See, it worked out. Jump in. And then we take off, go to Llano.
Yeah, those were some fun times. We had a lot of fun over there.
Yeah.
That was kind of when Llano was the spot. Llano, at one point in time, that's when, team roping kind of originated mainly from California, then moved to Arizona. And then after that, then it was the Llano was kind of the spot there in the early 2000s. Most of the 2000s, I'd say. That's when Speed and Rich, T and Tyler, and that was kind of the spot where everyone stayed. And so we all had so much fun. The Campbells, they'd all come stay at the house, Buck stay at the house, and Matt Funk. And man, it was just like I say, it was kind of a home away from home for a lot of us, because that was a place where everyone stayed. And so, man, a lot of roping, a lot of sparring, a lot of watching how the other guys were doing stuff. And yeah, now it's then I think about 2010, maybe 9, maybe a little bit earlier. Then it started heading to Stephenville, and then now it's kind of currently in that area now, and that's where basically all the runs are being made, and where all the guys that do it for a living that are the guys are all in that area, just grinding it out every day.
Right.
Iron sharpens iron.
You bet.
It is fun though when you were there though, because I remember there on a couple runs. I can't remember what horse you were riding, but I remember there for a while, like when you started getting comfortable, I could start seeing like your ability was starting to, like you were starting to feel things that you probably hadn't felt, because like I say, when them guys are just over around them steers and just roping and face. And
like, what am I doing here, Charlie? Yeah. What the hell did you get me into? And then all of a sudden, really, I mean, what I did, it just turned the cows or turned the steers and
just getting that feel, what it feels like behind the gas.
But getting out, getting on the barrier, getting out and
stretching yourself. Yeah.
Yeah, that was cool. That was fun. I appreciate that.
Like I say, one of those things I'll never forget, and being able to get around that. I remember the first time, like when I lived in Canby, that was what was so much fun about kind of growing up there, was all the top guys would come to St. Paul. Mm-hmm. A lot of times they would come stay at our house. So I remember about 10 or 11 years old, I remember turning steers for Leo Camarillo when he came to the place and was trying to heel horse and, getting a rope with those guys. Remember what that felt like. Like that was something I'll never forget, Mike Beers coming to the house and roping and trying to get sharpened before he headed back out there. And so, getting a rope with those guys, and those are some of the experiences, like I say, I'll never forget. It's fun to watch and see where like T-Wade and Thorpe are doing that for a lot of the young kids with their platform that they're doing with their roping. So that's pretty cool. And then, we had a lot of clinics that seemed like through those NFRs up there. And because remember, my dad started that club. It was Catch 22
at Bar 88 in Malala.
At Bar 88,
and the idea at that time was just to get everybody kind of organized. And your dad started that, and I think there was 22 people got together. Tim Phillips and a bunch of guys, Rocky, like I said, Steve Johnston, and we all rented that arena for quite some time before the new one was built in Malala. Parahiva, yeah. And so we roped up there for, I don't know how many years, 10 years at least. And then we moved down to the other place. But so at that point, I think that's when Steve and Liz.
Because I remember my dad started it, and it was, I think we put on enough ropings to where I think the ropings made enough money to pay for the hay, which cheapened up the membership for the 22 guys that were in it. And he held that for quite a while until he moved to Prineville, and then you took it over.
I did
after that, correct?
For like 15 years, and just kind of got tired of it. But the politics that go along with it. But no.
But it just kind of gave some guys another place to go rope.
Mm-hmm.
And remember Canby was kind of going on. That was Tuesdays, and then we had our little Catch 22 nights. I think it was Wednesday and Fridays.
Right.
Remember Friday nights, man? Those get wild. Rock would crack out the moonshine. We'd be pulling wraps on the steers the other night, then bulldogging them and riding them.
T.O. Farwell would shoot dogging.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yeah, we'd shoot dog them, then we'd ride them. Yeah. I wasn't on the moonshine then. I was still too young, but just being around it, I think just being around all that stupidity at the time, I think it's like, oh, let's steer wrestle them and then ride them.
Why not?
Apparently it was just infectious.
Yeah. Yeah. So when we got to go to that place, Parahiva in Malala, we started having your roping
clinics.
Yeah, clinics for 6-8 years in a row, I think.
Yep.
2 or 3 a year. Alan Bryson would come over and help with those deals, run the 4-wheeler, and then that's when you met Stephen Liddell, the team.
And that was kind of when I was right about the time I remember I'd had a few clinics up there before I'd made the finals. And then in 05, I was kind of getting my break. And I think I was in the top 5 in the world when I come back up there at home and did that clinic up there, I think at Bar 88, if I remember.
Was it? Oh, yeah, with Mike Beers. Yeah.
And then met Steve and Liz, and those were the people that really helped. As I made the finals, really helped they were one of my big sponsors that helped me in so many different ways.
Right.
Liz was, a God-fearing woman and really helped me a lot with how I kind of looked at things, outside the arena as well. And then, they were some of the key sponsors that helped with so many things, that helped with, making money while you were rodeoing to where a guy could afford. And I think that's when I bought my first piece of land after that NFR. But
yeah, very generous. They did, but then you helped them with their product as well. So it was a good trade-off.
Great people.
Yeah, for
great
sure.
people. Relationships. One of those you never. You're so thankful for it. When you look back at it, the people that God put in front of you that they'll be friends for life.
Right. And then we did those ropings over in Prineville. And at that time, those were some of the biggest ropings around. Like we had like 2,200 teams in a weekend.
Yeah, those Wrangler ropings. We started that deal, I think, in, golly, I can't even remember. I can't remember. Maybe 2005, 2006, if I remember right. And those were, then they got to be pretty good sized ropings we were putting on. Those were fun ropings.
Yeah, like 3 or 4 years in a row, and then I think you at that point you moved to Texas.
Yeah, I was in Texas, and then a lot of other things were kind of going on. As you kind of go through that successful, then things plateau, and you find out where certain cliffs are, and so then and then also it's kind of at the time as well too, where so many more things and opportunities were going on in Texas. Yeah, where it was hard to balance a lot of that, but. Yeah, those were fun times putting on those ropings.
Right, and it's fun to see. I've still got receipts of I don't know, like Jade Cork. When those guys would win, you'd have to go sign your name to it, and that's before everybody kind of made it. So I go back and look at. I've got. I don't know why I saved the damn folder.
That's funny.
Yeah, you see all those guys there: Clay, Tryon, and Jade, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and I remember Garrett winning that trailer. Garrett Jess.
You know what? It's funny. Remember that story where this is how good I thought you were. Your mind was always in the right spot because. Remember you back in the box with Garrett Jess, and you go, "Hey, I'm gonna make you famous," and he looked like he was about ready to pass a peach seed. He was pretty nervous, and you're like, "Dude, lighten up! I'm gonna make you famous right now."
Yeah, it was a pro-am, and he was just he was still he was young, he was real young, and it was a pro-am and or mixed junior senior, I forget what it was, and anyway, him and I were able to rope in it, and we were high call. We kept losing his hat. And this one, Tyler was there with the roping show, and I'm like, Garrett, keep your hat on. I'm fixing to make you famous. You're fixing to be on TV.
Yeah.
Are you ready now? Get your hat pulled on?
Right.
You ready to be famous?
Yeah.
This is right before I nod, by the way.
I know it. Yeah. I also remember you borrowed my horse.
And he took it.
Yeah.
And he just hammered that sucker. Yeah. I think he still lost his hat, though.
Same show, or same roping. You borrowed my horse, made a run on him, and you uncinched him. I didn't realize that. I made a run, asshole, and fell off. On the fucking show, pardon my French. And you're like, and I was pissed at you, and all you said was, "Why don't you check your fence?" I think you did it on purpose.
It's amazing we're still friends.
Oh, man. Yeah, I know.
We'd almost have to be related just to still be able to get along.
But you don't think I've been plotting this? The only reason I'm friends with you is because I'm going to get you back. Wait till your kids are old enough before I can start jacking with you, man. You're in trouble.
Oh, my goodness. Yeah. It was fun, though. Like, it was amazing that the last NFR that you came to when we were in Texas, and then seeing kind of where I was at, where I was going. And, it was amazing to kind of see where it started, where it crashed, then where it kind of got built back up, then how it ended. It was
cool, though, to see your perseverance, man. You had to tear it back down. I remember you telling me, just my style's not working anymore. I'm going to have to, kind of like Tiger Woods. You tore your swing down, and then got it back together, and then you were at the highest level again. That's pretty cool to see.
Yeah. Yeah, a guy goes through some of them phases. I've seen it a lot with athletes as well. Like first couple 3 NFRs made it in a pretty good way, and first one made it. I had it made before Cheyenne the first year, and then the second year ended up pulling it off by September, and then third year I made it was photo finish.
Right.
Like had to win Pendleton, did it, got in the top 15, and then had to win, I think, 5th at San Bernardino, the last rodeo of the year, to make the NFR, and won 5th, and won it by, made it by $100 or whatever.
Yeah, what's amazing is how many guys that you took to the finals, and I say that because
I know it.
You took a lot of youngsters to the finals.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I didn't rope good enough really to have the elite guys, and so I was able to kind of look for the kids that I thought could be, and so then and a lot of them just needed runs, needed reps, I was going to turn a lot of steers, and they were going to have a chance for a lot of money, and I knew the routes and knew how to make it. And so if they were able to kind of get in there, and here's kind of the pattern, and then like I said, it molded a lot of the guys, and it was I enjoyed the building part of that. It was fun, and like I said, for me, it was kind of a mental side of it too, where a lot of times when I rope with the good guys, you could tell they didn't really want to rope with you. Not that they got stuck, but or there was something maybe that they seen in me that wasn't the top guy.
Temper.
And whatever it was. And that was one of those things where it kind of played a little bit into, your performance away, like almost you're adding pressure on it.
Right.
But then when I rope with guys that I knew wanted to rope with me, then it was kind of that, you didn't feel like you were looking behind your back.
I get that.
You didn't feel like you were looking to where, like, if you don't turn the steer, you're going to get cut.
Right.
Kind of thing.
Yeah. And the other way, you're kind of the top dog on the team, so to speak.
Well, the leader, yeah. And I felt more comfortable in a leader role, even though I loved being a rope with the guys because I learned so much from all of them. But then it was fun when I was able to have the leadership role that felt more comfortable for me.
Right. Yeah. How many was it? Like 6 different guys you've taken?
I think 5. I think 5. Yeah, for the first time. Yeah, the funnest one was definitely the last one too, with Logan. Him and I being good buds for such a long time, and known his family for so long, and then to make the last one and to be able to know this is going to be my last one. That was kind of one of them deals where, when Jackie was pregnant with Journey and then Breakaway was taken off, for me, that was an easy, once we kind of laid it out that way, like I'm bowing out. I've done this long enough. I've got to do everything I ever wanted to do, way beyond anything my wildest dreams would have imagined. And so it was an easy decision for me. But it was I made it fairly about mid-season. So as you're just driving around, you kind of, for me, it was kind of, you'd almost go over your whole career.
Yeah.
As you're driving from one rodeo to the next, remembering, in 2007, then in 2008, now I'm going to do more clinics. Now I'm going to work on more clinics, trying to develop something where it's outside the arena where you're trying to develop more. Well, then didn't take too long before doing too many clinics. And now you're starting to get real mechanical with your roping. Yeah. And you kind of lose focus on what got you there because you're developing other things. We see a lot of athletes, once they get good, then sponsorships start pulling them in other directions, and or they're dating the wrong girl, or, whatever it is, drugs, or whatever, the fast life. Well, then they kind of get distracted and they lose that hunger of what made them so good. And then they either had to reel it in and, get their focus back, or it demised them. And it was kind of one of them where I knew that if I didn't get this figured out, then this was going to be over quick.
Right.
And so luckily in 9, I was able to redo some of my horse herds and redo some partners. And in 09 and 10, I was back. 10 was probably one of the best years I had, and then 11 got derailed again, and then horses and women and, divorces and all that other stuff that kind of goes. Well, then 12 was probably, I would say 12 was probably one of the highlights on being able to basically start all over again by myself and still make it. Like that one was
Bobby.
That one was hard. That one was real hard. And then, then just watching the transformation of changing swings and having to, because I got to where after a while no one was roping with me. Well, was it because of what was going on outside of the arena, or was it because my game wasn't good enough? And so then I had to look and see, like, all right, I'm going to have to get some game back, and I had to start figuring out how to reach better.
You did good though, man. You grew up a lot right there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that was good to see. And I told you recently, I'm more proud of the way you've turned out after the fact and getting there. I mean, for a while it was kind of eating you up, right? You're getting, it wasn't great. You're successful, which it wasn't great.
Well, internally miserable.
Yeah.
I think it's so hard you can use a lot of things for fuel.
Mm-hmm.
You just got to be careful on if it burns you up on the inside.
Yeah.
And I think for me, having a chip on my shoulder all the time and treating every win as life or death, that internally you can use it for fuel, but man, it's hard to stay happy doing that. And then trying to later now can I? This is what I do. This is not who I am.
Yeah.
Now can I make that transformation now and do it to where it's not eating me up? That remember, this is what I love to do, and it is. It's one of those things that's real easy to do, because it works.
Yeah.
You can use that.
So before we wrap this up, I want to ask you, as I get older, I keep mentioning this, and now you're no spring chicken, but you've developed your website, and it's been helpful. Whenever I have a breakdown, like, man, what am I doing wrong? Whatever, I go back and I watch some of your videos, even the basic ones, just go back to the basics. That's been very helpful. So now that you're in your late 40s, you'll understand what I'm talking about when things hurt. But, just having those basics to go back to has been very helpful.
Well, that's one of the things that for me was I remembered what it was like learning how to rope, and all the information was so surface leveled. Get in position, ride your horse. Well, I thought I was in position. I thought I did ride my horse. I stayed on, so there wasn't a lot of breakdown. And, one of the things that my wife, gets on me sometimes for being so literal, but I think for me, that's one of the things that helps, I think, with teaching is because if I can be literal and give you the definitions of what all these things mean to where you can now see it, to where we're trying to develop those online courses where now the things that I'm trying to teach you, now you can see what I'm trying to say,
right?
And utilize these dummies and the ropes at every single, now you know what these things are called. Now you know what you have to get ready for as soon as you nod your head. Not only do you have to know how to get in position and be able to learn how the rope works and get the rope around the horns. Okay, now what happens when the steer changes directions? Now there's all these drills you can kind of do to get ready for. So when you nod your head, especially this year, as high as cattle are, there's going to be a pretty good instance that you're going to have to rope a lot longer.
Sure.
So you're going to see the head duckers, the ones that slow down. So these are a lot of, I just try not to leave any stone unturned, with being able to just get the good visuals on the basic fundamentals of how to get the rope around the horns. Mm-hmm. And so this summer, I'll be filming the horsemanship. So hopefully by Christmas, by the NFR, I'll have the basics of horsemanship.
And it never used to be this way. Like you just go and go rope, right? Never thought twice about, wait, left hand, both feet at the same time? Or not at the same time necessarily. Yeah, that's been very helpful. Like I say, I'll just put that on and go into a rope or whatever, just on the way home from work and just the very basics, how to uncoil your rope. Of course, I'm just saying that, but
there's so many people that are just learning,
and
there's that's one of the things I didn't see was what happens when these guys pull this rope off the rack for the first time. There was so much, we'll just figure it out. Well, that's not going to help anybody, so this was something to where I understood the frustration of trying to learn how to rope and now just trying to, that's what I say the fun thing about the fraternities is, the thing, I don't get to do a lot of them, but I get to do enough of them that I learn so much, but the things that you're judged on, those 4 maneuvers, man, that's just the basics of roping in a way.
Yeah.
And so like the runs we're trying to perfect is the same runs that would win 13 down like we talked about. And so, all right, can I get to where I can break these things down now for people where we understand where all these moving parts are to set up this run? And then now can I explain them? And then now with the courses, now can I show it? Mm-hmm. And so, and like I say, that's I think the best blueprint on visuals. Those are the things that I studied, all these guys at the fraternities, with all these reels now, I screen record all these reels. I follow all the guys at fraternities because I want to see, how their horse leaves, where they run into, how they bring in that first swing up, how they handle that horse in the corner, how they get where's their left-handed feet, where's that right foot going at the right spot to where that horse starts to finish. And then where's the left hand do to get the face, how are they just whipping them suckers around? How are they doing that? Where does the feed at? And so that's how I learned, though.
Yeah.
Was through visuals. And,
and you're watching that, and here I'm watching like T-Wave from 3 coils back, and I'm like,
it's real important to understand what Cowboy Channel is more. It's entertainment.
Totally. Like me and Zach in practice will go, well, I probably shouldn't let it go, but if I do, this is what it's going to look like.
Well, I see so many kids at the clinic that got that rope tilted off to the left.
Yeah.
And they're like, well, that's what T-weight does. That's what Driggers do. Well, yeah, because they're throwing 3 coils. It's a different angle now.
Well, you explained it to me one time at the house. You actually took the rope, in both hands, and you were showing me where when you're throwing it from a coil or 2 or 3 back, you do have it that way because it's got to come in at a certain angle and how it lands on the horns. And I'm like, whatever, just throw the damn thing. Doesn't have to be science, does it?
Well, it does. Yeah. There's certain angles that makes the rope headed the direction you already have it pointed. It's kind of like shooting,
Whatever.
I know it. But it's one of those things though too that we've all made those adjustments because the way I rope close doesn't work when you reach.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what I had to start tearing up because I was run in the position and coil back and then I had to start changing those angles now when the further off I get back. Now I had to start watching those guys that reached.
Right.
But like I said, those are the things that helped me so much was I was such a visual guy. When I would video their runs, I would video all of them. Then I just dissect them and I compare them. Their run with my run and where was their hand location. I find out my hand was too low. That's why their hand was higher. Because the rope's going to drop over distance. And then now I'm trying to do the same thing with these courses as anyone that's visual is like now you'll be able to see kind of where all the moving parts at least are to be able to develop these runs.
And realistically, if we just do what we're talking about, I need to be 8 seconds on a run, right? That won a lot of money down there in Arizona. And that should be the goal. I don't have to very rarely do I have to be 6 something. And sometimes you do if you're at the, trying to win fast round or something
Well, the guys even talk about it at the NFR at the highest level in the world. I was talking to Colby Payne the other day when it was his and Clay Smith's strategy going in the NFR last year because they came back in the 10th round.
Right.
And all they had to do was catch to win the average. And one of the few mistakes you'll ever see Clay Smith make. Anyways, I was like, what was your guys' preparation? Well, it's just like make our run. And if we draw the good ones, we're probably going to win the round. But utilize the good ones, but don't be stupid and make good runs, good aggressive runs. Mm-hmm. And basically they were in the right spot. They were scratching along and then they had a chance to win it.
Right.
And so that's the same strategy, but like for me in the 13 downs for me is like you get a good start. You bring your first swing up the front of the box. You get your horse rated off with your swing headed to him, rope, get it tight, hit the left-hand side of the arena, heel the ropes 2 feet, be looking, but where them parts are at. And then to me, like that's the visual, that's the preload that you're talking about, like that the sniper was talking about, that preload, you're visualizing that run over and over and over again. And so in that way, when you get to the roping, there's no time.
Yeah.
But you've taken all the things that don't matter out of it because you need to hit the start, you need to set up your shot. And if you do that, usually the time takes care of itself. And if you draw a good one, you're probably going to be 6.
But you're talking common sense. You're back in the box. You're like, I've never thrown it 60 yards before, but I'm going to do right now.
Because I just watched some little Thundercat do it.
Absolutely.
And then it gets you off your game.
Hell yeah.
Exactly.
Watch this.
Yeah.
But no, realistically, the guy just goes and does his job. But man, it's hard. It's hard to be smart. You should know better than me.
I think, yeah, exactly. I think too, like say once a guy gets the feel of that run and then, that's what's so hard for me, I think, in understanding it now too, is because, now that I do so many clinics and I'm not able to come home and ride my futurity horses enough, I know what it's kind of like. I'm not able to get as sharp as the guys that are doing it every day.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's what it feels like is, so many guys that are working throughout the week, having limited time when they come home to be able to practice. And so trying to at least get good visuals for everyone to where, like say on their way home from work, they can watch it, before the jackpot, something they can watch, like just watching some good runs where you can almost get that run in your mind. So that way when you get there, it almost feels like you've been roping a little bit.
Yeah. What's your, on your, your thing, you have your online
course?
Yeah. Explain that a little bit to me as well. I signed up for it early on, but you have 8 different courses on that?
No, that's on that first course. Yeah, there's a bunch of dummy drills. This explains how the rope works, how to stretch it, everything to do with the rope. As far as lays go, as far as what type of rope is what, paid and bray with classic rope. We do a rope demonstration where basically we explain every single line of rope and what they're good, what their strengths are, weather accordingly, how to maintain them, just getting every information that a guy is seeking, try to get on that. And then also those dummies, utilizing those Smarties to their full potential. There's a lot of things that a guy don't realize is, roping head duckers has become a lost art because of these plastic dummies.
Sure.
So just giving guys ideas on how to be able to move the heads around a little bit where you can kind of hillbilly it up a little bit, but you can try to get the most out of everything because you don't want to be practicing trying to rope a head ducker for money.
Right. But I mean, you're at the house one time, I've got one of those just Smarties on the ground. I put a block underneath it and I tilt it up one way or the other, or take the horns off completely. So it's just got little teeny bones on it, whatever. So just doing things like that to be ready for any situation. One of your drills you said was even if you only have 10 minutes a day, rope 5 from here, rope 5 from over to the left, reach a little bit. That's been helpful. But
yeah, within 10 minutes, you can dang near do every run, as far as any situation, except for, the head duckers. But yeah, that's to me is you're trying to utilize time because we work. Everyone works, it enjoys this hobby.
Right.
So what's the best way we can utilize the time that we have to try to make the runs we're trying to make? So
yeah, that's been good. And your online courses, I forget where do you find that?
It's on my website, charlycrawford.training.
Yeah.
And so yeah, and then I'll be coming up with my horsemanship this winter. So yeah, I'll start filming in June. So excited about that. Yeah. That way we kind of now do the same thing with the horse, Now, how do we develop the left-handed feet?
Right.
Because that's a big part of the run. I think the right hand is what you can find so much information on if you look at YouTube. But, left-handed feet, those are things that need developed as well. And so really excited to show a lot of people the stuff that I've learned to be able to learn how to get your horse in the right spot. Then unless the right hand show off. But, a lot of times what guys don't realize is when they're roping that their left hand is actually getting in their way of themselves and their horses. And so, but if you don't know it, you don't know it. So.
Sure.
These are different ways to try to help guys to where I always like to think of the horsemanship kind of like the Bible. It's the book that never ends. You're always learning something.
Yeah.
And, a lot of these things too is I remember when Jackie was doing some clinics and a lady was trying to buy her horse because their horse wasn't working. But her left hand, when she would go, was going to the left, going to the right. So the horse was breaking wide.
Sure.
And she kept trying to tell that kid to try to get that horse breaking to the pin. So your left hand and your right leg have to be pushing that horse to the pin. So that way you're headed toward the calf. And the parents were like, well, would you sell your horse? Would you sell, you have anything for sale? And Jackie's like, look, I could sell you a $150,000 horse, breakaway horse. But if your kid doesn't learn how to ride correctly, that horse that you just paid all that money for will start working like the one you're trying to sell. So the horsemanship is so huge on if you do have a good horse to be able to learn how to ride, to be able to maintain it.
Right.
And then also too, learning how to ride correctly, where if you do it good enough, then after a while, you're starting to help your horse that it maybe has some flaws here and there and you help with correcting it. Well, then those are things that add value to your horse. Main thing I try to do is if a guy gets by his expensive horse, I don't want it to be like a Ford truck. I don't want you to lose it 10 grand as soon as you drive it off the lot. So learning how to ride it correctly will help maintain him. But if you ride incorrectly, then like I say, most of the time that horse ends up start working like the one you're trying to sell.
Right on.
Those are just flaws. Yeah. That's what I'm trying to help people be able to learn how to do it correctly. So it makes the game fun. The important thing about the team roping is, for one, you want this investment to pay off, and then you also want to have fun. And there's nothing more frustrating than banging your head against the wall and not sure what's wrong.
Sure.
So
right on.
So yeah, and then we're headed to St. Paul in July.
That's right.
So we're back to doing clinics again together.
I've put that on my Facebook page, and then Charlie's got
be on my website. So anybody in the Northwest, we'll be headed to St. Paul July 12th and 13th, I believe. And so that's going to be fun to get back up there again, especially that time of year. Yeah,
it'd be good. Right after the 4th of July St. Paul Rodeo, the rodeo grounds will be nice and clean and in good shape, and everybody can stay right there.
And the weather's good.
Yeah, it'll be nice.
It's pretty reliable. And
hope so.
Well, I know it seems like the Canby rodeo, that's when it's hot. It seems like every single year Canby rodeo is like the hottest time of the year for the Northwest.
It has rained over the 4th up there, but
well, it's a good thing it's after the 4th, so that'll be dry.
Maybe we can go to Marriott's if we have an issue. He's got an indoor pin.
Well, your number's on there, so you guys will be able to contact Dan for Me and Corey will be headed up there, so
Cool.
it'll be fun.
You want to head back uptown?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Let's go see Johnny Cash's museum.
Right
I want
on,
to go
bud.
see that. Maybe we might see over there Kid Rock again.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks, man. Thanks
You
for
got it,
having me
man. I
on.
enjoyed it, man. It was fun. It's fun
Appreciate
going
it.
down memory lane.
You bet.
Thanks
Let's go
for
make
all the
some memories.
Yeah, exactly. That's it's always kind of fun where, like, what did you say that one time somebody came up and was like, man, how did Charlie get this figure? He goes, yeah, he did not always have this. I forget what you told me that one time, but you're like, yeah, he was not always like that.
The help from being God.
Exactly. All right, man. Love you, brother.
All
Talk
right,
to you after a bit, man.
All right, man. Take care. Bye.
Hello, everyone. If you've been wanting to get into team roping or improve your skills as a beginner header, now's your chance. Join us for the NRS Beginner Headers Only Clinic at the NRS Arena in Decatur, Texas, April 25th through the 27th. This clinic is designed just for the beginner headers up to a number 3, focusing on roping the horns, solid horsemanship, and the fundamentals you need to build confidence and stay safe while having a great time. And if you can't make it in April, we've got another clinic happening October 3rd through the 5th. So you've got another chance to get in on the action. Don't miss out. Spots fill up fast. Head over to charlycrawford.training or check the podcast description to get the link to enroll. We'll see you in Decatur.